It's now 5:34, and so you just give me the heads up and we'll press the start button. Okay. Okay, and the meeting has begun. It's August 11th, 2022. It is now 5:35, and this is the regular Environmental Commission meeting.
I should probably turn this on. Thank you all for coming. We're going to call this meeting to order. Camille, can you lead us in a roll call?
Absolutely. Commission Chair Novi.
Here.
Commission Vice Chair Christian Adams.
Present.
Commissioner Switzler.
Here.
Commissioner Kramer.
Present.
And Commissioner Parker, O'Connor, and Morrison are absent this evening. Let the record show we do have a quorum.
With the slimmest of majorities. Okay. Anybody who would like, please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
No changes to the posted agenda.
Okay, do we have any oral communications or directions to staff?
Not this evening.
Great, we can move right to our presentations. Who would like to introduce our presenters? I can do it. If we get back to the agenda. Nope, that didn't work.
I can help you out there.
Yeah, I lost
Chair
my
Novi.
screen somehow.
Our first presenter is Wild Coast, Swami's Marine Protected Area and M2 radar updates with Lily Mulligan, Conservation Program Coordinator. And we also have our Marine Protection Area Coordinator. Is it coordinator?
I'm the Director of the Marine Protected Area Collaborative Network.
Collaborative Network. Thank you.
Pass these out.
All right. Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for letting us speak. My name is Angela Kemsley. I'm the Conservation Director of Wild Coast. We also have Lily Mulligan, who is our Conservation Program Coordinator, as well as Calla Allison, who is our partner, the Director of the California Marine Protected Area Network. And we're going to talk to you briefly about some of the updates related to our enforcement and compliance initiatives with our marine protected areas here in San Diego County, and specifically in Encinitas. So the organization that Lily and I work for is called Wild Coast. We're a nonprofit. We're binational. We have an office here in San Diego, as well as some offices down in Mexico. And we can serve coastal and marine ecosystems and address climate change through natural solutions. We do ecosystem-based conservation, sea turtle nesting beaches, mangrove lagoons, gray whale breeding lagoons, and then in California, we work on marine protected areas, blue carbon restoration, research and climate action planning, and then also marine debris. But tonight, we're going to speak to you about our marine protected areas, specifically about Swami's, one of my favorite marine protected areas, one of 11 marine protected areas here in San Diego, and one of 124 that we have in the state of California. They're amazing. They're beautiful. I'm sure all of you have been. Protect very important ecosystems and wildlife, but they are under threat from poaching. If you can go to the next slide, please. So we try to use innovative technology to help with protecting our resources. The California Department of Fish and Wildlife is the main organization in charge of enforcing these areas, but them and a lot of the other partners are significantly understaffed, don't have as many resources as they need to, so we try to provide them with innovative tools to help them out. One of those is the Marine Monitor Radar. And so we actually have 2 radar dishes installed. One of them is on the lifeguard tower at Moonlight that overlooks Swami's. And then we have another one on the Scripps Pier. And actually just this morning, our coworker Lisa was on someone's roof in South La Jolla scouting a site to install a 3rd one. She made it safely off the roof. But they are They're basically military-grade radars, but everything is open source, and so they're a lot cheaper to produce and to install, and they monitor the marine protected areas in real time, and so we can actually log on our phones, on our computers, and we can see what's happening in the marine protected areas in real time. We can also get historic tracks. So if you go to the next one, you can see on the left, there's our radar at the end of Scripps. On the right is the one at Moonlight. Next slide, please. And our radars track vessel activity, so you can actually see the track here on the right-hand side. And the computer is actually programmed to flag potential poaching behavior. So if boats are going under a certain speed, or if they're doing something like going and then moving around the same spot, that's tagged. It triggers a suspicious activity. And the one on Moonlight actually has a camera as well, and so we can get at least a clear enough image to see what type of boat it was, and if they have one of the transponders, we can get the name of the boat as well. And then Lily goes through every month and reviews all of the different triggers to see if she agrees with the system that it is potential poaching or not. We also have, it's usually Lily who goes out on a boat, and will go around the MPAs looking to see if what she's seeing in real time is what the radar is saying it's seeing, and also doing some education and outreach. Lily's going to speak a little bit about what she sees out there. But if you go to the next one, there was just a paper published about the radar. That's one of the papers you should have on your desk. So this was written by our friends at the Anthropocene Institute, who's the institute who runs and sets up the radar, and then we help to run the ones here in San Diego. And if you go to the next slide, one of the main cases that we had actually one of the biggest successes we had came out of Swamis. So if you've heard of the Electra case, it was one of the party boats, the commercial passenger fishing vessels, was actually caught poaching in Swamis. And one of the excuses that we quite often hear is, well, maybe the wardens didn't know where the boundaries were. Like, we were just outside. And so in the case, they were actually able to pull the radar data from Moonlight and show the boat with the wardens going into the MPA and making contact with the Electra very clearly inside the marine protected area. And so the radar was able to be used to back up what the wardens were saying they saw. And there was a successful conviction. It was the first case tried under a new law that increased the fines for commercial poachers. So they got a $5,000 fine and a 1-year stay-out order from Swamis. And that's really important, especially for the commercial boats, because the old fine was only $1,000, and these boats can make thousands of dollars in a day. So they figured it's just the cost of doing business. So it was really a success, and it was right here at Swamis in Encinitas. And if you click one more time, it also is very popular in the media and with the public. Hearing about this success that the city of Encinitas and all the partners here are actually doing something to protect our resources. So we've had several news stories about it. Lots of people are interested, and now we're really starting to get some interest and some traction. Even with the DA's office, we had a really good meeting a little while ago. And one more click for me, please. And then one of the things that Lily does is every month she goes through and she looks through the different trends, and we produce these reports that show what the radar has been seeing over the past month, and we also do it around holidays, and we'll give that to lifeguards, wardens, anybody who can patrol, to help kind of show where the hot spots are to help them direct their limited resources. And then Lily's going to tell you a little bit about what she's actually seen out at Swamis in the past couple of months.
Thank you, Angela. So, as she mentioned, I'm Lily Mulligan. I'm Wild Coast Conservation Program Coordinator. I'm basically the boots on the ground, or boots on the boat, I like to say. So I go out on weekly boat trips, and I'm basically monitoring what's going on in and around our MPAs. So I'm making sure that what we see on the radar is actually happening, and for the most part, we've seen it true, except for some discrepancies at Scripps, because the radar has been down with some technical difficulties, but we're fixing that at the moment. And so I'm down at Scripps making sure that everything I see is happening on the water. So for the most part, we are seeing families out on the water in the marine protected areas fishing. So mom and dad out with their kids, beautiful morning, but they happen to be fishing within the boundaries. So we kindly go up to them and say, hey, did you know you're fishing in a marine protected area? They say, what's that? So for the most part, they don't know, and maybe they're just telling us that, but we like to go up to them and give them a little more information. So we point to the shore, saying, see that house, see that tree, those are the boundaries, as well as showing them apps they can use to look where to go if they want to keep fishing but just stay right outside that boundary. And when we see commercial fishing vessels, they're usually too big for our little boat to go up and try to talk to them. So we call CalTIP from CDFW and report these boats. We send them all pictures that we gather just from our phones and the coordinates that we get on our phones, as well as where these boats are. So as well as looking on the water, I'm compiling these reports that you saw earlier, and hopefully you can go through later, compiling everything we see out on the water, both through holiday weekends and the whole month together, and then compiling everything I see from the radar. And what's great, as Angela mentioned earlier, I don't need to show all 300 boats that were in the MPAs throughout the month. I can go through and see different tracks where they look like they had fishing behavior, and the pictures as well. So that's what you'll see in these reports. There aren't a ton, but we have to keep an eye on this, so that way CDFW knows where the hot spots are, the days, maybe let's say it's a Saturday morning that has greater activity, so it's important to have them out on the water because they're the ones that can actually hand out tickets. So we're hoping to spread these reports to as many hands we can get them in and spread the word about this, because outreach and education are the most important tools we have, and spreading the word of what are MPAs. And so we ask for your support, and thank you for the support you've given us on this project. So I'll hand it over to Kala.
All right, I'm going to back us up a little bit. So you heard what Wild Coast is working on. They're an incredible organization that's really taken a leadership role for helping do outreach and education, increase compliance in San Diego's MPAs. But as far as the larger MPA collaborative network, they're one of 450 plus organizations that are involved, including you guys, in kind of the ongoing localized management of marine protected areas. So what we have a statewide network of what we call MPA collaboratives, and they're cross-sector. We bring together city, county, state, and federal agencies, both staff and elected officials, along with nonprofit organizations like Wild Coast, academic institutions, scientists, educators, tribal government, tribal members, ocean businesses, commercial fishers, recreational fishers, community members. I could kind of keep going, but you get the idea, is really anybody that has an interest and expertise, a job, a passion for the California coastline, and we bring them together on a countywide basis for kind of this localized, comprehensive MPA management. We think it's really beneficial for educators to hear from enforcement personnel. And I think they're all benefiting from listening to scientists, because then they can use some of those facts when they do outreach, or they do try to gain compliance from the public. So we really kind of work together for this localized management. And there's a great value. We've been recognized by the state, the entire collaborative network. We have an MOU with the state agencies, and we actually did an in-kind value study that comes in for the entire network around $20 million annually of resources and in-kind effort that we're contributing to MPA management. So it's pretty significant. We're excited about it. Next slide. Oh, I already talked about this. This is when I went on and on about diverse stakeholder engagement. But it's definitely one of our biggest assets as we bring them all together. So the San Diego Collaborative is the biggest of the 14 collaboratives. I think we have well over 130 regular participants representing over 65 organizations in San Diego. We've really had a lot of success. You have these wildlife brochures that the collaborative work on. There's been signs. There's been the smaller little fishing guides that I think you have in the back box as well. Ambassador programs. We have many ROVs actually that the collaboratives can use for education and outreach, and we're working on live streaming into the classrooms. There's been MPA curriculum developed. A lot of great projects. by the San Diego MPA Collaborative. And since its inception in 2013, there's been leadership from the city of Encinitas. They've been one of the co-chairs. So we've had 2 different co-chairs from the city. So they've really been engaged, and especially the Marine Safety Department has been a key partner. We really make the argument to our state partners that lifeguards have a huge role because it's the first person you see on the beach. And they're kind of the first line that say, actually, you can't fish here, put your dog on a leash, and you got to put the shells back. So they have an important role as well. Next slide. Oh, I guess before I move on to the next slide, I'm going to remember these things. Also, there's all the great projects that San Diego worked on, but we have 13 other collaboratives, and we share resources across the collaborative as well. So an example, San Luis Obispo Collaborative, Monterey Collaborative, developed these bilingual coloring books that are really cool for kids and outreach events, and they have a virtual reality component. And then also an English and Spanish activity guide where kids can do the activities. And every collaborative has projects, and we can use those across the state. So it's really leveraging each other's resources. So I want to dive in a little bit into SWAMIs. So what we're also doing is we hold enforcement trainings for allied agency officers. Right here, actually. We've had, I think, 2 of our trainings held here with the city of Encinitas. And we bring together county sheriffs, PD, NOAA officers, state parks, lifeguards and peace officers, city PD, obviously Fish and Wildlife, BLM, pretty much anybody that has jurisdictional authority on any of these MPAs. We bring them together, we train them on the marine protected area regulations and boundaries as well. So this is the map with the regulations for SWAMIs. So recreational take by hook and line from shore is allowed, and then spearfishing of white sea bass, no commercial take, no lobster, and no other intertidal take. And let's see, if you go to the next slide, we actually, because this has been a question, where is the line? Where's the boundary? So while we're hoping to use technology and develop tools like a mobile app, like Fish Legal is one of them, where they can actually see when they're cross over, we still think there's a need for outreach materials, hard copy outreach materials. And we thought there's a need to not always have to pretend like you're a bird and looking down, where what does that boundary look like from the water or from the shore? So we hired a licensed land surveyor to come out and actually tell us exactly where the line hit the shore, and those are the images that you see on your screen. So the northern boundary is right, the Moonlight Beach kind of at that outfall. And that southern boundary is at Seawall at Seaside Beach. So we're able to get that exact perspective. And sometimes they do go out at an angle, right? It's not going to be perpendicular to shore because the California coastline is not straight. So that's also something good to note for both enforcement officers, people trying to gain compliance, and for the public as well. And something that we, send our officers up a pretty comprehensive reference guide for officers. So they have these images right on their hands. They can just flip right to the SWAMI's SMCA. It has all the regulations, it has the maps, it has the boundaries, and we actually also documented every access point and sign. So they can tell, hey, you walked right by the sign to get to the beach. So I know there was some way for you to become aware. We want to give the public every possible chance to have the information so they can comply with the regulations. But it's also been 10 years, and the responsibility does lie with them to know what the rules are. Next slide. So something we've also done in the past couple years, just to gauge a sense of what the community is concerned about. So we had a community forum for San Diego where people got to express what they're seeing in their backyard, or when they're walking their dog, or when they're out fishing, or whatever they're doing, what the community is concerned with. And the highest concern for San Diego was still poaching in marine protected areas. It was still fish and game code violations. There's also a lot of concern about trash and pollution, a lot of concern about impacts of dogs, which you're probably not surprised about. And then harmful tide pooling was a concern, and that was specifically noted for Swamis. And yeah, there was just concern that there's maybe not an awareness of the impact. And we wanted to differentiate poaching, which is take from a tide pool illegally, versus harmful tide pooling, where they're really not there, but they're going to take a shell as a souvenir, or they're going to pick up the hermit crab, or they're going to poke the sea anemones. I mean, all the things that we did as kids probably before we realized the impact that it has on the intertidal habitat. And so there was a need for education there. And then I mentioned the enforcement trainings and manuals. We started with San Diego, and that was in February 2020, and then took a big break with COVID. And we hope to be wrapping up the rest of the counties and be ready in 2023 to do another enforcement training for officers. And the other thing we're doing is tracking what everyone's doing, because Fish and Wildlife officers report what they're doing to the Fish and Game Commission, but there's really not a full awareness of what everybody else is doing. So we want to be able to share what our partners are contributing to compliance on the ground. So we have great participation from City Encinitas lifeguards. They report monthly on how many contacts they're making in the MPA, and then MPA-specific contacts for violations they're observing. And from January to July 2022, they had 28 contacts that said, you are breaking the regulation and trying to gain compliance. We also encourage them to call CalTIP, so that gets logged for our officers as well. But at the end of the day, we want people to comply with the regulations. And then the last thing is we have put together a DA task force where the DAs can get together and make sure they're being consistent on how they're prosecuting, because we can be out there educating, we can be watching with radar, we can be citing, but if the prosecutor just throws it out or dismisses it, I mean, where's the deterrent there for others? And you know, there are no repercussions. So we're doing a lot of outreach to DAs and court officers. I was just actually presented to a judges association, and we're just getting word out there that this is a resource of all Californians, and it's something that matters to our community members. And then we hope these violations, the egregious violations, are taken seriously. And Angela talked a little bit about that. We're having great success here, especially, and the rest of the state is watching. So it's great to be in a leadership role here. Next slide. So Encinitas Mpa Programs, there's been a lot of great work here. A Swami's Tide Pool Docent program and curriculum was developed because of really that need to educate people during king tides and low tides, just to increase their awareness. I was the City of Laguna Beach Marine Protection Officer, and I used to use this line where, you know, it's just one shell, or they'd have a bucket, said with 5 million visitors a year, if everybody takes one shell, there's nothing left. And I had this really cool picture of a hermit crab using a bottle cap as its home, because it was in Florida somewhere, because it couldn't find a shell. And that hit home. I mean, it was a little sad because the kids were like, oh, but they definitely put the shells back. And I think it's just an awareness that we can make an impact to an habitat, and we can make a positive impact by educating others and allowing ourselves to be educated as well. So lots of docent materials were housed at Swami Stairs. There's signs at the access points that let people know about the marine protected areas, and just a lot of good partnership with the other 65 organizations that are a part of the San Diego Collaborative, and of course up and down the state with all the rest of our partners working with us. So we just really, really appreciate the support of the city, and hope that engagement continues and that leadership role continues as we move forward. I think it's kind of a long-term engagement, but there's a lot of energy and passion, and I think the awareness is increasing. People know that MPAs are marine protected areas and not major party areas. So we're getting there. At least they start to know what MPA stands for. So thank you for your support. Any questions for us?
Thank you so much for your work. This is really exciting and neat to hear about all that you've accomplished together. I have a few questions. I was not even aware of the radar tracking system. Wow, that's really cool. Use of that old school technology. Are you able to, do the boats, the commercial vessels, have vessel tracking devices on them? And are you able to use those tracks? Is that part of this process?
Yes, any of the
Okay.
vessels that are over a specific length, so if they're big enough to be one of those party boats, they should have the transponder turned on.
Okay.
Sometimes we do see if they know they're in violation, they'll switch it off.
Okay.
But they are supposed to have them on if they're one of the larger boats, and that the name of the vessel will show up on the radar.
And so you're able, I guess, who has access to those tracks? Do you guys have access to those tracks too? Yeah.
We do, and we can give selective access to other people. So
Okay.
some of the lifeguards, CDFW has it.
Okay, great. Do you ever, I have just two more questions, hope we don't mind. Do you ever catch any illegal dumping from these vessels in the MPAs? That would, yeah, or is that something you guys have thought about or observed?
Not from vessels. We've had reports of, landscape waste being dumped into, or construction waste being dumped into marine protected areas, especially some of the estuary MPAs. That's been reported to us as a compliance concern, but not as much from the smaller vessels.
Okay, great. And then I just have a question about Swami's now. Swami's is like my home beach. I love it. I just came from there. That's why my hair is wet. I went swimming there, and my husband and I got married on that beach, and so we're there all the time. We live really close to it. We do unfortunately see, it's such a beautiful beach at low tide that there's always just trampling of the reef, and the tide pool etiquette is not always observed. I think it's a lot better than it used to be, and that sign at the stairs is a huge accomplishment, and I can tell it's really prominent, and a lot of people take note of it. Is there anything else that you could be done? Anything else that the city could do to help support kind of increased awareness of the MPA there and better treatment?
I think support for a docent program. I know we kind of had a hybrid at the city of Laguna Beach where we had a volunteer docent program, and then we also had city tide pool educators that were city staff, and that was a really good partnership. And it's just was, even if if you have schools coming, making sure they're checking in with the city before they come, they get outreach materials before they even get there, has also been helpful. But a lot of it is just reaching out to people when they're there. And then, the signs do help, especially when it has the icons that show the trampoline. But, education is generally where we start with it.
Okay, so the docent program you've seen a lot of success with. Great.
Right.
Okay, thank you so much.
Go ahead.
Thank you for your time. This is really educational. I didn't know that you're not supposed to poke the sea anemones. I've done that with the kids all the time. What's the reason that you're not supposed to do that?
Well, they take in the water to stay hydrated as the water goes out.
Yeah.
So, we're just taking away their ability to, stay cool.
Got it.
And then for the older kids, who wanted to put their fingers right in the middle, I'd be like, that's their mouth and.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good. That's a good deterrent.
super effective for teenagers, not
Got it,
as
got it.
effective for other kids.
So I'll stop encouraging my kids to do that. That's why I get them to the beach sometime. So yeah, thanks. Very informative. How are the boundaries determined? Is it just kind of like those are the most frequented beach areas, and that's how, because it's kind of a made-up thing, people can overfish right outside the boundaries. So, what's the reason for it? And then how do you guys determine that?
Yeah, so I was actually a part of the South Coast Regional Stakeholder Group that helped set up the marine protected areas for the South Coast. And, there was a whole science advisory team. They gave us, pretty rigid guidelines on what was going to work. the MPAs needed to be a certain size and they needed to be spaced apart so that the spillover effect could actually make the larva go from one MPA to another. So even if you fish the in-between areas, it still helped replenish stock. There was also, we needed to cover all the habitat types. So we didn't want to just protect a rocky reef. We also wanted to look at sandy bottom, estuaries, and some deep water. So we wanted to make sure all the habitats were protected as well. So the intent is not just like this one area. It's supposed to act as a statewide network and stabilize the entire coastline, and make sure that we have a healthy, robust fisheries and a healthy coast for many, many generations to come. And there was a lot of negotiations that went into it. There was a lot of give and take when we could, there was a lot of hearing what was going to make an economic impact on fishers, especially the commercial fishers or favorite fishing spots of recreational fishers, and if there was a way to meet the science and the goals of the MLPA while also reducing any type of economic impacts, or meeting kind of the needs and the wants of the fishing community, we tried to make that happen. But it was a lot of push and pull, as you can imagine. And there was a lot of interest. There was a lot of stakeholders in that group as well.
So was it compromised to a point? I mean, if the rules are followed along the coast of California for these MPAs, do we have sustainable fish? I mean, I'd still say we're probably still overfished, right? I mean, or do you know? I don't know.
We're about to start we're having the decadal management review this year. So Fish and Wildlife is looking at 10 years of MPAs. They have 10 years of data, and they're seeing what is working and what needs more time and what isn't. So we're about to get all that information, so I can't really speculate now. Our concern is that they're not paper parks, that they're actually, people know about them. They're actually being enforced. They're real on the ground. And then we can say definitively whether they work or not, because we know they're being complied with.
Got it. Yeah. So these have been around for these MPAs in
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah, they went into effect January 1st, 2012.
Gotcha. Awesome. And you guys are just a nonprofit. You're not state, I guess, Wild Coast.
Wild Coast is a nonprofit, and I'm kind of this boundary organization that is the liaison between all the state agencies and all the on-the-ground partners. And so we kind of do the communication up and down and then across the state to share resources and make sure they're not paper parks. So that's kind of really our interest, but we have more statewide involvement.
So just to clarify, though, the MPAs are a legal thing. California Fish and Wildlife defines it, and then your organization is helping to enforce it.
Right. It actually went into the Marine Life Protection Act passed in 1999, and it took that long for the MPAs to actually go into effect. It took that long to come up with the science and negotiate. They had a whole bunch of false starts. So it was a huge process. So we're happy that we actually have a network, and now we're just like, let's make them work. Yeah.
So on that point, how do people know? Like, I know you said might be some signs on the beach, but like if you're out on a boat, when you get your fishing license, is there a map or something that says, hey, stay out of these zones, or is there any other, or online maybe there's an app or something, or how would you know? Or would you guys just come out in your boat and say, if you didn't know, get out?
I might let one of these ladies chime in because I feel like I'm talking a lot, but we try. I mean, there's a lot of diversity in both visitation to California and residents. So we try to hit as much as we can. So getting, materials out to kids, that their parents made, brochures, signs at almost every access point where you're going to access the coast, and every harbor and marina and launch ramp, there's a sign telling you about MPAs, mobile apps, there's a website. We try to we go to events and table at events so people are aware of these marine protected areas. So we try to give, and this is with partnership of Fish and Wildlife, of course, like everybody, every chance to be
even
aware.
if the still picture was on the paperwork for the fishing license, you'd be like, oh, look at that, I can't go, I mean, you would know.
I know, and we really tried hard.
Oh, I
The
see.
only way that's succeeded, because Fish and Wildlife can't require, it's not Sport Chalet anymore, whatever, a sporting goods store that sells
Oh, I see.
fishing license, they can't require them to hand anything out. So, I mean, they're excited if they just hand out the sport fishing
license, yeah.
regulations. So we tried that path, and the only thing that worked was, localized, going to the local bait and tackle stores or sporting goods stores and just putting a stack, on their counter, or a map in the counter. Some of our scuba diving shops have like the map of the MPAs as you go to pay, and they're like, oh, it's right here. So the spearfishers or the lobster divers will see it. So it's that local touches and making contact with those businesses that we thought, we've learned is the most effective approach.
And I'll just say I'm a very occasional sport and fisher person. I just go out there with them because it's fun to be out there. I don't care if I catch fish.
Yeah.
But I think the outreach is very good, and I know, when I've bought my lobster card or, other things, the information is there. So anybody who's gotten a fishing license is purchasing a ticket on a sport boat. If they say they're completely unaware of this, especially if the captain says they're unaware of this, I mean, that's really a lie. So I would applaud, all of the organizations that are working together, over many years. It's evident to me that, there's been many years of looking at practices, refining those practices, understanding what works best and settling on those things, and appropriately continuing to reevaluate that as, unfortunately, human beings change and, occasionally need new ways of doing things. So I applaud the idea for apps, the idea for, new visualizations that make sense to people because we don't look like birds down on the land. All that is really wonderful thinking, and I think that there's really a tremendous job that's done out there. I'll also say I've seen the docents. I think Commissioner O'Connor, who's not here today, is a docent at Swami's, and they're very effective. They really know a lot, and it's tough because I have kids too, and they like to poke the anemones. But it's the docent program I think works really well. They're kind. It's not like scolding. It's you should know. The fun stuff about what's really going on with the anatomy of these organisms is great. So I just I don't need to prattle on and on, but I think you all do a wonderful job, and thank you for for the work that you do.
Yeah, thank you. Can you leave some of those activity books for our kids?
Yeah. I'm sorry I didn't bring enough for everybody. It's like bringing a snack. We're not bringing enough for everybody, so
My
I
kids are in their
apologize.
20s, so
But
they
these
won't.
are hot commodities, so these are my last two, but I'll share with you guys. Oh, good.
Can I ask one last question just about the future? Do you have any knowledge of the plans for 30 by 30, protecting 30% of the ocean by 2030?
I think,
No, that's a Biden administration. Yes, yeah.
yeah,
Lands and oceans, yep.
I know Fish and Wildlife really wants to get through this decadal management review so we can share what's happening right now with our network of marine protected areas before they start thinking about 30 by 30. So we're trying to keep those processes very separate in the public's eyes because, as you can imagine, there can be some, oh my goodness, we don't even know what's happening with these marine protected areas, and there's going to be more. So there can be a little bit of a panic. So we were like, let's see what's happening with what we have now, and then we dive into what's going to happen with 30 by 30.
Thanks, fair enough, makes sense, yeah.
Right. Thanks, you guys.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. So we have another presentation today from John, who is, of course, president of the Encinitas Earth Fair, who will talk about the wonderful EcoFest. Thanks, John, for being here.
Good evening, Environmental Commission, and of course, thanks to Wild Coast. They've been part of EcoFest over the years, and I was just invited by Dog Days of Cardiff to man a booth there, and if they want to send somebody, they could share the booth with me and EcoFest. So I sent you an email. Anyway, so that was a little promotional plug there. So EcoFest, we've been doing this since 2007. I think we started planning our first one around 2006. We're having the next one October 9th this year. And basically, the object is to inform and to inspire. We want to inform the public about what's going on. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, yeah. Okay. So we got, since 2007. We have sort of a three-legged stool approach. We highlight public agencies, government agencies, nonprofits, and the private sector. And back in 2006, 2007, there was still a lot of animosity between the private sector and environmentalists. That's not quite as bad now as it used to be, but to get the private sector on board with a lot of environmental programs was like pulling teeth. Now we have a lot of inroads, there's a lot of cooperation, but EcoFest still wants to highlight that you can be environmentally friendly and be profitable. We can show as an example businesses that conduct business in a very green way. So, let's say Stone Brewing, for example. They're brewing beer. There's nothing really anything environmental about that, but they do it in a very sustainable way. They compost, they collect the water, etc. So we look at various facets of the private sector as well as environmental nonprofits and public agencies. It's a broad appeal kind of event, family friendly. We have kids activities. And again, we're there to inform and inspire people to be more friendly to their environment, save money, and save energy. We don't just have this event one day a year. We also try to do things throughout the year. Last few years with COVID have been a little bit different than normal, but we have partners that we try to do programs with. Let's see the next slide. Just a quick history. Encinitas Environment Day for the first 9 years. Then we rebranded to call it EcoFest. And for a few years, we created an organization called North County Eco Alliance. And that was sort of always in the back of our minds when we first started this with Bob Naniga in the Park and Rec Commission. And that was to help guide a lot of the environmental nonprofits in North County in several ways to help them become more effective organizations. So volunteer recruitment, grant writing, websites, that kind of thing. But also in a way so we don't have 24 organizations doing beach cleanups and nobody working on another aspect. And so try to help them leverage their strengths and make sure that every part of the effort is being approached. And then now we're EcoFest doing the same thing we've always been doing. Next. This is just a list of some of the partners that we've had recently. A lot of the local social agencies like Rotary Club. We have, of course, Surfrider, Wild Coast in the past, the school districts, the electric power companies, the Main Street associations. Again, we try to be all-inclusive, and we try to reach out to as many organizations and people that we can. Next, please. Just a nice little photo, model of sustainability. Collinwood Creek Park is where we decided to hold the first, what do you call them, versions of EcoFest, and then we're still holding it now because it was our orchid-winning park. We incorporate a lot of cutting-edge environmental features at the time, so we have porous asphalt, we have native plants, we daylighted Collinwood Creek, which is the reason for Encinitas in the first place. We did bioswales and natural filtration and lots of lovely things in that park. So it's a natural place for us to go. It's small, and that's fine for now because we're still on this COVID retraction, and maybe not next year, but probably in 2 years, we'll be going to a larger venue, either the community park on Santa Fe Drive or some other venue. We'll we'll see. Next, please. Just highlighting some of the areas of focus, go from sustainability to earth, water, kids planet, again, activities, eco-alliance with social causes. Next slide. And then, of course, climate, marketplace. One thing about our event, it's not a typical street fair type of event. It is, we do have vendors who are selling things or services, or they're promoting their company because we feel they are a good role model. And so we do encourage commerce. We do have organic and vegetarian food, either in the food trucks or other vendors. Our libations lounge, we call it. For example, we have Pure Project. They are a brewer, but they do put money into environmental concerns. They're very environmentally thoughtful, we can say. They're originally from Costa Rica, and so they even work internationally on some environmental projects. Green schools, they're the green teams at the schools. We try to work with them. Kids are a way to get to parents. I think I sort of heard that mentioned with Wild Coast's presentation. Whether it was littering, if in the 70s, the smoking effort, kids tend to drive a lot of parents' behavior, and kids, they also know, if it's BS or not. They cut through a lot of the noise. Okay, look, there's pollution there. Pollution's bad. Stop polluting. Well, what about this? They don't buy that. And then, of course, we look at things holistically at EcoFest. So if the planet is healthy, if people are healthy, if business is healthy, everything's healthy. Kumbaya. Next. Just an example of one of their areas of focus, sustainability. For the few years that we did at the Leash Tag Foundation site, formerly Pauleki Ranch, we did have some tiny homes on site. Hopefully we will again in the future. But again, we're talking about water conservation. We have alternative fuel cars demonstrated, and we do e-bike test rides and other bike test rides. In fact, B-Cycle is going to be sponsoring us this year, and they're going to have a free promotional code if you want to ride a B-Cycle bike to the event. So you just get their code, plug it in, and you have a free ride to EcoFest. Zero waste is a big thing that we're working on these days, and there's a list of partners you saw, and so we will help. What's the word I'm looking for? Consult with these partners on their zero waste efforts. So ICA, the Institute of Contemporary Art, used to be Lux Art Institute. They had their fundraising gala last month, and we took over their zero waste effort. And we ended up diverting like 92% of their waste stream with like 2 weeks' notice. Julie Morisseau and Amelie Cataline, they did a great job. A lot of hours put into it, but that's the kind of thing. People are confused, what goes where, what can I recycle, what goes into compost, etc. And that's what we're here to try to do. Next. Some of the outcomes, historical outcomes, your environmental commission is a direct result of EcoFest in the early days. There was no environmental commission. The Park and Rec Commission took it upon itself to do these things, and now there you sit. So you're welcome. We had other cities coming to our event, and they modeled their Earth Day fairs after ours. Mim Mixlove, she was part of EcoFest in the early days with Camille, and so they started, a lot of the farm lab and healthy creations, and we also pushed several environmental issues to the city, and again, we did a forum panel on MPAs. That was probably 12 years ago or something like that, at the library, and trying to spread the word. And supporting other NGOs, environmental NGOs like Eco Rotary and Solana Beach and others. Next. And how do we align with the city and environmental commission? You know, the things that you guys are working on, the policies that you're working on, it's important work, has to be done. It means nothing if there isn't compliance or understanding or behavioral change. And so we're here to help with that part of it. So whether it's building efficiency, renewable energy, finally, congratulations. We have our own CCE here with San Diego Community Power. But we were part of the effort in the early days with the Solana Beach's Eco Rotary 12, 14 years ago to talk about community choice power. And they ended up doing their own organization, and we went a different way later. But it's, the city of Encinitas is now 100%, I believe, using 100% renewable source of electricity. So one of the things we used to do at EcoFest was we take solar power and we'd power our stage, for example, using a solar generator. And now there's really no reason to do that except to maybe show off that we can do it, because 100% of the electricity used here is from 100% renewables. So congratulations, thank you. Zero waste, clean transportation, more fuel efficient or zero emissions vehicles, water efficiency, carbon sequestration, things that are part of your CAP, part of your mission as an environmental commission, and for the city of Encinitas to be a green city. We're trying to support that. Next. Just some fun. We do a poster every year, and they've become iconic and fun, and people ask us for copies, and just some, one of the things we try to do is not to be too preachy, try to have some fun, include the arts. And there it is, thank you. We make environmentalism fun. And you can scroll through the next photos. They're just photos of EcoFest over the years. But we do have music, local music. We have local food. We have local beverage. We use the schools. They do an ecology unit, so we try to encourage them to share, and we try to get their involvement, make it happy and family friendly and all that good stuff. And I only brought a couple buttons. I'm sorry. I'll have to either give some word to Crystal or to Mark O'Connor. Mark has been working with us many hours, poor guy. But anyway, that's it. So I welcome you all to come out to EcoFest. I encourage you to volunteer or to corral some friends or family to volunteer. And if you know of an organization that would benefit as an exhibitor, bring them down. I believe that the city is going to have several booths, and I think you guys will be represented in one of those booths. So you'll be there in one capacity or another. Any questions?
If we wanted to volunteer, or someone we knew wanted to volunteer, is there a website or contact where they would reach you?
That would be a great thing to be on this presentation, wouldn't it? It is ecofestencinitas.net. A couple of your fellow commissioners have a button, and on the back of the button is the QR code, and that'll take you directly to our website. Thank you for noticing that oversight.
That's great, thanks.
Sure. Anything else? Character assassinations?
I'll be there. I'm always there. We love it. You guys do an amazing job. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, Camille's been a big part of it over the years, and Crystal in the last couple of years. One of the things that we've done during COVID is we've held with the city virtual Earth Day celebrations, and that's been fun. A little harrowing, kind of last minute thrown together, but we had music videos, we had live interviews, and little trivia, and it's been fun. So anyway, thank you so much. Thanks for what you're doing, and hopefully we'll see you October 9th. All right, thanks.
Thanks, John. Okay, we're moving on to item 6 here on the agenda, which is approval of minutes. Just a point of order. Are we allowed to approve both simultaneously? If we make such a motion?
At the same time, I think you'd want to approve them separately, just in case people weren't in attendance or didn't read those minutes to
Well-
approve, maybe?
Then I have a quorum question, because if anybody abstains, we won't have a quorum on either one.
Right, right. That's a good point. There you go. We may have to bring these minutes back to September.
Because I know I wasn't at the first one, and I don't know that all of us were at the second one, so.
Right. And you can approve them if you've read them and you agree with them, even if you hadn't attended the meeting. But if you feel more comfortable, too, if you weren't there and haven't had a chance to read those minutes, we can bring those back easily to the next meeting and just have 3 meeting minutes to approve.
You want to push them through? All right, we can push them through.
It's
All right.
whatever you feel
so,
comfortable with.
I'll make a motion to approve the July 14th meeting minutes. Anybody want a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And then I'll make another motion to approve the May 31st special joint native plant meeting minutes.
Second.
You were there.
I was there.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Hopefully nobody will kill us later. Here we have number 7, informational items, presentation schedule. Crystal.
Thank you, Commissioner Novi. So just to go over the schedule for our presentations coming up, we just heard from Wild Coast and from EcoFest. September we have open, and then here are some of the suggested speakers and topics for future. If you have any thoughts or ideas, this is your time to discuss that.
Chamomile I think we had discussed this. I had a speaker lined up, but that was when we were virtual in our meetings. And so this organization is based on the East Coast, so they would give a virtual presentation. So I guess I wanted to see, A, if that's possible, B, how do the other commissioners feel about having a virtual presentation? And I can tell you who I had in mind, and if that helps inform the decision too.
I guess first things first, are we allowed to do that now that we're back in person?
That's a really good question, and we'll have to see what the future brings, but I can certainly check with IT to see if, they could phone in or Zoom in, possibly. Right now, we aren't doing hybrid meetings, but that may be a possibility in the future, so I'd hate to rule that out, because you want to bring this presenter on. So we will inquire with IT to see if that's a possibility. And then, of course, we may go back to remote meetings, and then, of course, that is a possibility. So we'll have to see, and we'll keep you posted.
Sounds maybe unlikely then that we would have that resolved by the September 8th meeting?
Not necessarily. I could ask tomorrow and maybe get an answer on
Okay.
where
thank
we're
you.
going. But as far as remote meetings go, that's been back and forth, and we won't know until we know. So, but we'll definitely.
Thank you. That makes sense. So just if you're interested, it was Rich Earth Institute. I don't know if you guys have heard of them. They had this really cool article about them that came out in the New York Times like a couple of months ago. And I'm familiar with them because I'm part of this group called Ocean Sewage Alliance. So Rich Earth they're based in Vermont. They've come up with a way to recycle urine. They call it pee-cycling. So, and get the nitrogen from the urine to local farms. And so you're reducing fertilizer usage, nitrogen pollution, you're reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And so we're kind of getting on board with recycling wastewater for other, I guess, I don't know if it includes urine. But anyway, so it was going to be just a presentation to talk about what they've done in Vermont and these other farms along the East Coast, and then see if any of this stuff applies to our city.
I'm interested.
Yeah, me too.
Anybody else have any suggestions for speakers that want to get on the list?
So I passed on, I think it was last month or a couple months ago on the solar. I was supposed to do a presentation and I wasn't able to. So I can do that. I won't be here for the September 8th. I'm going to be out of town for business, but if October, November is open, and I can also flow with it, Crystal, where hey, is it going to be an opening? As long as I have a little bit, a couple weeks heads up, then I can put something together. And I've said this before, but if you weren't here, you can email me directly if you have, because solar is a broad topic. Commissioner Novi and Commissioner O'Connor actually asked me a few questions. So if you have things, certain topics, let me know, because I'm going to try to keep it brief and then leave it open to questions, but I'll try to hit the things that you want me to go over.
Thank you, sir.
So maybe Crystal, maybe tentative for October.
Okay.
And then if someone else still comes up with a speaker, I can be bumped. I'll be like that guy in the late night show that just, hangs out.
I'll be on
If the
tomorrow.
stars don't show up, the B actor.
Okay, and I had one topic too. A couple months ago, we had the Oceanside folks come out here to talk about why building the groins was such a great idea. And I was also talking with Surfrider about coming out, and they have kind of a counterpoint to that presentation. So I thought maybe it would be good to have them come out and we could hear like another perspective on it. So don't know what the timing of that would be, but it could be next month or maybe later in the year.
Always good to hear from Surfrider. And then I'm happy either to myself do or have somebody from the Botanic Garden do if anybody wants a deep dive on the rare plants in Encinitas and which areas are protected and which ones aren't. That's something that's it's germane because all that work with the joint commissions is very related to that, and we're doing there's a lot of interesting stuff happening around that right now. Again, we can flow with it, and if there's an empty spot, we can fill one. I would probably suggest Tony Gurno as the best speaker for that from the Botanic Garden. So if there's an empty slot, let me know, Crystal, and I can arrange.
Okay, so it looks like we'll aim for Commissioner Adams' solar in October unless there's any other presentations or presenters that are more available, and you just let me know when you connect with them
Yeah.
if
And then
we
yours,
can adjust the schedule.
yours for September, if it's possible, and if not, we could try to schedule one of the other ones. Great. Okay. Hold on. How do I get back to the agenda? Here we go. All right. So we don't need. That's informational. No voting. Okay. On to action items. So here we have the Environmental Commission work plan. Crystal, take it away again.
Okay, so I will share with you the work plan update. I'll just go over the few items that are new from last month. So those are highlighted in red in the agenda packet. So under commission representation, I'll note that Commissioner Parker, Kramer, and Switzler were appointed to the Environmental Commission's Work Plan Subcommittee to develop the new FY 2013 Commission Work Plan. So we have yet to meet, but we're working on scheduling, and the subcommittee should be meeting before your next meeting. So it's likely that a draft recommended work plan may be presented at your next meeting. And then moving down the list, under CAP implementation, I'm happy to announce that our green building ordinance was finally approved by both the agencies that we needed approval from, the CEC and the BSC, both approved, and officially August 2nd is our effective date of that ordinance. So it's now in effect, and we scrambled to get all of the implementation pieces online. We've got a checklist and some fact sheets that are now online for applicants, and we're going to hold a public training on the ordinance on August 25th at the library. So we're going to send out announcements about that shortly. I think they'll go out tomorrow, and anyone who's interested, whether you're a homeowner or a developer or a builder, can attend and learn about the new requirements. And there will also be some experts there who are well-versed in green building and can answer questions and stuff. And then under vegetation management, I'll mention that the third native plant policy joint special meeting was held on August 3rd. And that covers what happened between last meeting and this meeting on the work plan.
Thank you, Crystal. Does anybody have any additional updates that they would like to codify before we vote? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the current work plan as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you so much. We're moving on here to commissioner-initiated agenda items. We have none. Any updates of items of interest from the commission or any staff?
I have an update from Commissioner O'Connor, who would have given it tonight if you were here. I heard from him that Encinitas City Council is interested in learning more about the proposed public smoking ban ordinance. So he and I will present to City Council. I believe it's their next meeting next month. So, yep.
Yeah, we were looking at tentatively September 24th,
Okay.
I believe, or 28th,
okay.
I'm sorry. I think it's the
Okay.
28th. Yeah, so later in the month.
Later in the
Yeah,
month, okay.
Next month. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Crystal.
Yeah, no worries.
That's great news. Anybody else?
I never know when to put these things, if this would be 10 or 11, but I have a question, Crystal, on the Ciclavia subcommittee. If we wanted to go about making Ciclavia more than annual, and maybe a quarterly event or something, what would be the best route to go about that?
You could start with inquiring with the staff person who works on that to see if there's a possibility to do it. If there's not a current ability based on our staff work plan and our budget, then you could take it through the Environmental Commission as a recommendation to council to hold it more than annually. So that's a route you could take as well.
Okay. Do you know who the person is, or should I just reach out to you?
You can reach out to me
Okay.
and I'll connect you with
Awesome.
the staff person. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, any other updates?
I had one more from Commissioner O'Connor. He would be giving this. That the city of Solana Beach passed a balloon ban. And, and then Commissioner O'Connor and some others presented to whatever is the equivalent of the Environmental Commission for Del Mar. It's called their Sustainability, I think, Committee. And they were really very interested in that, and it sounds like that will kind of move forward to the City Council of Del Mar.
Encinitas leading the way. Awesome. Okay, any other updates from staff? No? Okay, do we have any future commissioner-initiated agenda items? And I remind you all, you're perfectly welcome to put agenda items on before the next meeting. It doesn't have to be done now. Okay, hearing none, we can adjourn. Thank you all so much.